At the time when I started making jewelry, it was really just for fun because I was dealing with a lot of health issues. I had chronic Lyme disease and another autoimmune disorder. So I couldn't have a job, I couldn't go to school, and I really just needed something to like keep my hands busy and do something.
Hey there, it's Jules. Welcome to Jules Unscripted, Living Life Without a Script podcast, where we chat about the beauty of aging, learning what authentic means to you, and how to build your dream life one step at a time. Get ready to hear stories from incredible people who learned what it takes to build nothing out of something. Here we go. Hi everyone, welcome to Jules Unscripted. I'm so excited for this podcast episode because I have my internet friend Nina here, and Nina is the creator of Twistful Thinking. And if you don't know what Twistful Thinking is, it is a beautiful jewelry brand that Nina created herself, where she started off wire wrapping, then got into soldering, and now went through jewelry school, did so many things with her jewelry brand that it's been such a journey to see as I have some pieces and also just like following along this whole time. We were talking before that we've known each other since like 2017 because Nina's also helped me
Yeah,
with
crazy.
yeah, I know, because you also helped me with jewelry stuff too, because I had a little bit of a jewelry business for a couple years there in my mid to late 20s. And it was
Mhm.
like a 3 to 4 year run, but you really helped me with like what kind of wires to get, what kind of tools to get, like all the kind of basic
Oh,
stuff you need to get started. And I just remember like texting you, being like, I'm at Michael's. What do I get? What gauge do I get? How do I do this? And you like were so like amazing with answering me like all those questions. So I really appreciate that.
oh,
And yeah, I'm just so
I'm
excited to
glad you
like,
thought so.
yeah, of course. I'm very excited to dive into more of like your story though, and how you started, why you started, and just kind of where you're thinking of going in the next couple years since you've been doing this for
Yeah.
like a very long time.
Yeah, it's been a crazy long journey. Definitely looking forward to the future, especially now because there's so much happening.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Would you be able to like talk about that when we get into that part of the interview?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay. Okay, so I want to get started and ask you, what inspired you to start doing jewelry? What was it that made you go like, yeah, like I really want to do this?
It's I guess long story version, at the time when I started making jewelry, it was really just for fun because I was dealing with a lot of health issues. I had chronic Lyme disease and another autoimmune disorder. So I couldn't have a job, I couldn't go to school, and I really just needed something to like keep my hands busy and do something. And I ended up going to a local art show and seeing this one girl's booth who had just like very simple wire wrapped earrings. And I thought, I have some wire and beads at home. I think I could do that. So I just started playing around and making whatever felt good. And that kind of turned into like family and friends wanting to buy the pieces. And like a few months in, I thought, "Oh, is this like a thing that I could do?" Especially dealing with illness, like not always having the bandwidth to do things like that. It was just something I could do when I felt up to it, and that just kind of turned into an actual business. And luckily, I'm mostly healthy for the most part and can do it full time and live off of it.
So you kind of started by seeing someone at a trade show and you're like, wow, like that seems really cool. It seems simple enough to where I could get my hands dirty, kind of work with something, especially going through like the diseases, the
Yeah.
autoimmune diseases you mentioned, because I know that can be really hard for some people. Like a lot of people that have those diseases can't be too physically active a lot of times. So the fact that you're able to
Mhm.
find something you could do with your hands is really nice. And I'm sure that really helped you through a lot of like hard times as well too, like, going through all of that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely, and it's really interesting, like, being a full-time artist and connecting with other artists. I would say a vast majority of full-time artists also deal with chronic health issues. because it's I wouldn't say easy by any means, but more manageable than having, like,
Mhm.
a 9 to 5 schedule, you know?
Yeah, so, like, you don't have to drive to some place all the time, you could just work from home if you could work from home or, like, your own little studio
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah. So, because I remember
Yes.
when we first were talking, you were working at a hair salon, right? As,
Mhm.
like, a receptionist kind of thing. I remember your jewelry business being, like, a side hustle at first, right?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was. It started as a side hustle when I couldn't work, and then when I was able to actually work, I did as much as I could, did, like, so many local shows, tried to sell online as much as possible until it got to that point where I could do it full time, and luckily, I've always had a really supportive community, local and online, so I've been able to do it full time for almost 10 years now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Was it hard for you to get to full time? Because I know, like, you have to put in a lot of thought when it comes to, like, purchasing your products and being able to sell as many as you
Right.
can to, live a
Mhm.
lifestyle, pay rent, do all that kind of stuff. So, like, how long did that take you to kind of figure everything out?
I still feel like I'm figuring it out day to day, to be honest with you, because it's so inconsistent. I think I worked for, like, 2 years before I said, "Okay, I have enough money saved up. I'm, like, secure enough with my following and my community to know that I was probably going to make, decent monthly sales." I also lived with my parents still at that time, so the risk was a little lower for me at the time,
Yeah.
but, I moved out shortly after that, so yeah, it's really just all about being accountable with myself for actually, like, doing the work and putting in the time to make sure that I can pay my bills and feed my dog, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. Yeah, it's such a risk to take sometimes because you just like you don't know, but it's
Mhm.
great that you have the community and that you were able to make as much as you did online and in person and things that you were able to be like, oh yeah, I can do this,
Yeah.
which I think is really inspiring. I'm sure a lot of artists would like to be in your position, you know?
Yes, I know, and especially these days, I see a lot of artists having to stop doing their business full time, having to close
Hmm.
their shops because it's really hard out here. And I feel the effects of that as well. But I know I feel very lucky, very blessed every day that I have the support that I do.
Hmm. Yeah. Speaking of like that support, you started to go to jewelry school. And I know you had to have a lot of
Yes.
support getting there because it's a different state than where you lived. I remember that. I remember you had to be away from home for a couple of weeks. I was following along your journey and I thought it was so cool. And I was like, I love this for her because
Yeah.
like you really showed behind the scenes of like a workbench and what it was like to like learn new projects and how it was frustrating at times because of like hurricanes and the weather and you're like oh my god and it's
Oh,
just like a really cool
yeah.
experience to watch you go through that. So like what made you decide to get that jump to being an like independent artist from learning everything like online and through like little classes here and there to
Yeah.
actually going to like jewelry school?
I really think it just came down to realizing that this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. I never have seen myself doing something other than making jewelry, be
Hmm.
that for myself as a small business owner or like for a company or a jewelry store in the future. Really, like, having that certification is just more of a security in my own future as a jeweler, as well as being able to upgrade my own skills for my business, where I can take on higher end orders, produce, like, higher quality items, work in finer metals, and we learned so much as far as, like, stone setting and fabrication and just everything you need to know, like, within this professional realm, and I really wanted to take my business to that next level of offering a higher end jewelry because I've had so many requests from people, like, to make engagement rings and,
Mhm.
special things like that, that I really wanna be a part of, but I never had those skills. And I'm the kind of person that really learns well, like, in a classroom situation, one-on-one with an instructor. So, when I learned about this school from another jeweler who had gone there, I thought, "This is definitely the path that I'm supposed to take," and made it happen.
Yeah. No, I love that you wanna get into, like, the finer jewelry when it comes to creating jewelry, because I think that would be
Mhm.
amazing to see what you come up with, and because I remember you were trying to learn how to solder that one time, and, like, it was a way, like, finesse at the time, and you were, like, struggling a little bit, and so the fact that you went from that to actually going to school and doing fine jewelry for, like, engagement rings and for finer pieces because people are demanding it. I think that's really cool that you're like, "Wow, like, there is a big need for this and people want it from me." Like, that's
Yeah.
so cool, and the fact that you took the time to learn all that and got all new tools and things, and it's really cool seeing you, like, learn how to place the diamonds into, like, the settings, and
Yeah.
it's really cool seeing that. I'm really excited to see where you're gonna go with that because you make amazing pieces already, just like wire wrapping, so seeing it be more like
Thank
finesse is
you.
gonna be really neat. Of course.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that as well. I Since I've been back, I've been in this really crazy headspace where I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure what the next step is. Like, how do I get there? But that's really how I operate. I have to panic a little bit before it happens.
Yeah. How do you get through the creative slump, and how do you manage to come out the other side and be like, "Yeah, like, I have my creativity back," because I know for me, like, when I'm in a creative slump, when it comes to, like, podcasting or when it comes to, like, just doing something, I
Yeah.
get so in my head too that it's like, I don't wanna do anything, I don't wanna create, I don't wanna do nothing, and so, what do you find that helps you get out of that rut?
Oh, that is something I struggle a lot with, honestly. I think I have to do like a lot of brain dumping as far as like writing things down. I love making a list. I love making a to-do list or like these are all my thoughts, kind of journaling. I also sometimes work with a coach that helps me get through these things. On the creative end of it, I do like to I'll just create something just that I want to make with no
Yeah.
pressure, with no like thought in mind of like, oh, this is gonna sell. I'll just make it for fun, which is actually what I did last week, and I had a great time. I actually got to use a lot of the new techniques that I learned and a lot of the new tools, and it came out really great. It came out exactly how I was picturing it. So I definitely feel more excited about like getting back into it, and hopefully that just expands.
Yeah, and I love that you create something for yourself because that's so important because you create for
Mhm.
everyone else. Like, you create for everyone
Yeah.
and anywho, and so it's like, I feel like you need to be creative again and see what you like and what you wanna create no matter if it's gonna be sold or if it's just for you. Because I think for me, what kind of stopped me from continuing doing jewelry is that I was creating because of selling, not because I wanted to create and not because I wanted to do things like that. And so I kind of lost that, spark for creating jewelry. But I think that how you are
Yeah.
managing to get through that is really inspiring. And I'm sure other people listening will be like, I need to do that more often. I need to create just for me and not just to sell.
And it's hard because the only way that you keep going is by selling,
Yeah.
but it's very important not to get so caught up in that, which is something I struggle with as well, like, I'm not immune to that by any means, but I feel like also people tend to connect more with something when it's, like, authentically what you want and not necessarily just to produce, you know?
Because a lot of your stuff is with crystals and it's
Mhm.
made with intention. Because you're using, like, crystals, will you choose a crystal that you, like, vibe with for that day to wanna make? Like, how do you choose the crystals to create a piece of art? Because I know crystals have energies and they have symbols and meanings. So what makes you decide to choose the crystals? And also question too, Do you happen to find yourself, like, so attracted to one crystal, it's like all you wanna do is just, like, work with it all the time, and then you're like, "Okay, I need something else," and then you, like, kind of jump
Yes.
back and forth? Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely find myself getting attracted to certain things based on, like, the mood that I'm in or what I'm going through at the time, and I just kind of let that happen. As far as, like, picking crystals and, like, deciding what I wanna do with them, I've always let that come very organically. I don't really like to plan out, like, designs. I've probably drawn out designs, like, a handful of times. If I pick up a stone, I usually get a feeling if I wanna work with it or not, and then almost immediately what it's supposed to be. And especially, like, if I do, like, a collection, like I did a Valentine's Day kinda themed collection a couple of months ago where I picked a lot of stones that were in support of, like, self-love, intention, romantic love, things like that, and but if I picked up something that was related to that and I didn't vibe with it, it's not coming along. I'll
Yeah.
vibe with it another day, you know?
So, like, did you find that with the Valentines you were more, like it was more drawn to, like, rose quartz kind of crystals?
Yeah, definitely rose quartz, I did some garnet. I ended up choosing a lot of stones that were really about, like, grounding and self-love and
Mm.
like, emotional support, which was interesting because I know Valentine's Day is such, like, a romantic love kind of holiday, but I feel like, how do you even get there if you're not having that kind of relationship with yourself, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely, you need to love yourself before you can love someone else.
So true. So true.
So, I wanna talk a little bit about crystals too, because I have a feeling like a lot of your followers follow you for the
Yeah.
crystals. Were you, like,
Mhm.
always obsessed with crystals and always, like, loved crystals even before getting into the jewelry wrapping and jewelry making part of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Growing up, my parents always had crystals around the house, and they weren't really into, like, crystal healing, but they were there. So I always found beauty in those, and then, most years, we would go out to Connecticut and visit my mom's family over there, and her stepmom, my grandma, would she was an artist as well, and she had a studio at one of their homes that was just packed full of, like, really cool stuff, tons of crystals, lots of different, like, ways to create art, and she would make, like, these really cool pins with crystals, but she would always let me play with them and, like, make things of my own with them when I was younger, and then when I ended up starting to make jewelry, she actually gifted me a lot of her own collection, which
Wow.
kind of jump-started me into crystal jewelry because I didn't have a lot of access to that in the beginning. So a lot of my first creations were using stones of hers.
That's really cool. I love that because it kinda gives you a deeper look into your journey with crystal jewelry because it started when you were young with your grandma,
Mhm.
like, she introduced that to you, and I think it's really
Yeah.
cool with so I mentioned this before in another podcast episode where a friend's podcast became to be because it was kind of like the invisible string theory from Taylor Swift. And so it's not from Taylor Swift, but, like, the
Mhm.
song Invisible String, like, it makes me think of Taylor Swift. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, that moment in time for my friend with her podcast and how the podcast was always there for her, like, throughout her whole entire life, kind of had that invisible string theory attached to it. And I think that's incredible because it's kinda like the invisible string theory within your business, right? Where
Yeah.
you were able to like, you started with your grandmother, you started seeing, like, seeing it around you, and you're like, "I could do this too," and your grandmother helped kinda push you towards it, and then it's like, you just have been doing it for so long, and it's so ingrained in you and your lifestyle and your family, and, like, it's just really, really cool hearing that, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, like, it makes sense."
Yeah, honestly, I guess I never really thought of it that way. I always thought it was really cool that it was, because my family is so involved in my business, but Yeah, I didn't think I mean, all of my success today is really back to those points.
I think that's really cool. It's there. It's like ingrained into you, you know?
Yeah, a lot of the people in my family are artists. It's not completely surprising, but I feel very lucky to have that. And especially because it comes down to like being supported as well. I know a lot of artists and people that do art full time don't have that kind of support. So I feel very blessed for that.
Yeah, of course. And like you have a family that understands you and your kind of thought process and how like you're artsy,
Yeah.
creative, and they don't hinder that for you. They let that grow in you and they encourage it, which I think is also important too, because if you don't have people that encourage that kind of aspect within your creative genes, then it could really not inspire you to do things.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be able to do half the things I do without them. Like, when I do in-person shows, like, when I do my outdoor setup, it's almost always my dad or my boyfriend who are helping me set up, and it's not even a two-person job, it's like a three-person job at minimum
Well,
because
yeah.
I go all out, but I couldn't do it without them, and my friends also are artists as well and so supportive, like, beyond, so I'm very lucky, I count my blessings for that.
Yes, and so because I've put up a lot of, like, shows as well too and pop-ups and stuff, and it's not easy.
Mhm.
You
No.
have, what is it? You have, like, a tent, you have tables, you have chairs, you have, like, accessories, you
Lighting, fans,
uh,
all the display stuff, your checkout space, your packaging. Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
I
It's
I feel your pain there.
yeah, of course I like to do it up. I like to make it like the biggest and best it can be, but it's so much work. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
How long
Mm.
did it take you to set up?
If I had my way every time, like 2 hours for my full outdoor setup, yeah.
How long of
But
a time do you have to set up?
2 hours is like, that can usually happen, especially with outdoor events where they know, like, it's gonna take more time. Sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes if you're doing, like, something indoors, it's, like, 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll still be setting up when people are going through.
Yeah, it's just kinda like hit or miss sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's so much.
What is your favorite aspect of doing a live show?
Definitely connecting with people. I get a lot of repeat customers,
Mhm.
and I love being able to reconnect with them and, seeing what's calling to them at that point in time, or even if they don't buy anything. I love just catching up. But definitely being able to introduce my brand to new people as well, because I get a lot of the reaction that, "Oh, this is so different. I haven't experienced anything like this before." So I do love that, and I do think it's a much different experience than coming across my business online
Mhm.
because it's way more tangible. You can see everything up close. You can, like, feel the weight of it and feel how much work actually goes into it
Mhm.
and, be able to interface with me in person one-on-one.
Yeah, I think that is really special too because it's like, if they've followed you for a long time, it can be like, "Oh, I'm meeting
Mhm.
my favorite artist." It's kind of like the fangirl experience in a way.
I do get that
Mhm.
sometimes, and it's so funny because to me, I'm just a girl. I'm just making jewelry in my apartment, you know? But it's really cute. I definitely love that.
Would you ever consider having your own store? So, like, you have a own store where you are showing your jewelry that you made, and then you have, like, a little studio in the back where you can make jewelry? Yeah.
Yes, I think that is my ultimate goal. It's something that I resisted for a long time because I never necessarily thought that I would stay here where I live currently, but now I don't see myself. going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I love working here in my home. It's also a big struggle
Mhm.
because work-life balance is super hard. And being away in Tennessee and having, like, a regular schedule of going to class every day, working for a set amount of time, and then going home and having, like, downtime, that was life-changing. I thought, "Oh my god, I've been missing this for a very long time." So, I think being able to separate it into a different space, as much as I love it being here, would probably benefit me in the long run, and I would love to, you know, do my over the top in-person setup in a more permanent space, you know?
Yeah.
It would be that's the dream for sure. That's next step. I don't know how long it's gonna take me to get there, but I'm excited to make it happen.
You put it out into the universe, and the universe will find its way to get to you for that. It could
Yeah.
be small, but then it could grow into something bigger. Like how you started small with your doing it as a side hustle, right? Now
Mhm.
your next
Yeah.
step could be small where it could be like having a renting out a space for like a month or 2, right? And then like seeing how that is. And it could be a very small
Yeah.
space. Like, it could be the size of a closet, let's just say. Like in
Right.
a big space that's like a little mall, kind of thing. Like a
Yes.
space that you could call yours and you could like level up from there.
Totally. Yeah. I would love that so much, and I think this is actually the first time I said that out loud, so
That's
l
amazing.
let's make it happen, universe.
Yes, let's do it. Now that you said it, and now that it was the first time you said it, it has to happen, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
so
It would
excited.
be great.
If you do
Yeah.
that, then it'll definitely be my goal to get to Michigan.
Oh, no, that would be so great.
I've never
Yeah,
been.
I it would be so cool to, like, have a space to show my work, do my work. I would love to be able to host classes in my own space.
That would be
'Cause
cool.
I have been teaching classes now, and I love that way more than I ever thought I would, but, to be able to, like, do that in my own space would be incredible. Yeah, and just have somewhere to, like, be home base, you
Yeah,
know?
and home base away from your home.
Exactly, exactly. Going forward, work-life balance, baby. It's so important and
'Cause
so hard as a business owner, yeah.
Yeah, because you can't really separate your workspace from your living space, right? Because your workspace is pretty much in your living room, or
Yeah, so I actually I moved about a year ago into a part of town that I really wanted to be in, so I sacrificed some of my extra space to be able to do that, and now, like, when you walk into my apartment, I have, like, a combo living room, dining room situation because when you walk into the next room, it's all studio. Like, this is technically my dining room, I guess you could say.
yeah.
So, I have to exist in it at all times, which I don't hate by any means because this is my passion. It's hard to manage all the time because I definitely get stuck in a place where I'm like, "Well, I'm here, I might as well work," you know?
Yeah.
And that's
There's
not
no
always
time.
healthy.
Yeah, there's no stop
Yeah.
time for you. You're always on the go, you're always thinking, you're always like does it feel like you can't rest sometimes because the apartment and, like, the studio's in the apartment?
Yeah, sometimes for sure, like, there's really more of my space that's dedicated to my business than my own space.
Yeah.
So, it's a
Would
little
you
challenging.
Right. Would you like to show us your studio space? Like, where the magic happens?
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah.
turned off all the lights because I was going for a lighting situation, but I can definitely
No.
take you around. So this is my main work bag. This
Mm.
is my baby, my pride and joy. I definitely went for the upgrade when I got this bench because it has more storage, more space. It's definitely hardier. My microscope that I just got, that's a must now. This is my little what is this? Oh, my laser engraver
Oh, that's right, because you do
and
like
my
great jewelry too.
yes. Yeah. This is my wet area right behind my bench. So this is my pickle and my tumblers, my little removable solder station there. Um, More storage. Never have too much storage.
Hmm.
More storage. And this house has been my wire wrapping area. It's got all my spools, my arc welder, which I use for permanent jewelry, but I also use it like daily here as well to make chains and taxing before I solder. I do also have a lot of plants in the studio because we love plants. More storage and even more storage with lots of tools and stones.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see like this is my area right here where you walk into, and then you're right into my studio.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. It's literally just boop right
Yeah.
there. That's
You,
a really
you, you,
space though. It's such a space to have all of that.
I do love it because this part of town it's definitely somewhere that I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of my community, like my local community, is actually from this area. And I did a lot of shows in this area anyways.
Hmm.
So it just made sense.
That's
Um,
really, yeah.
and it happened so suddenly, but it was worth it. It was worth taking the risk.
It's amazing what you've done with that area and how you were able to have a studio in there with all the things that you have and that you collected the tools, the stones, everything. You were so organized with it all and you have like separate stations. Like I think that is really cool to see. And it's like, look, it is doable if you're living in an apartment. It's just it's not gonna be like super aesthetic, but it's gonna be like your passion. Like that's what should be more apparent, you know?
Yes. And I try to make it as aesthetic as possible because that's the kind of area I like to create in, but it is what it is. And until I either move into my own space or get a bigger house, this is what it is for now.
It's beautiful though. I love it. Thank you for showing us.
Thank you. Of course, yes.
So I do want to ask you a couple more questions. So it's kind of like a questions from the audience. How long does it
Okay.
take you to make jewelry pieces, and how do you determine the pricing for them?
So it's kind of hard to quantify the time sometimes because it depends so much on what kind of piece it is.
Yeah.
I would say for like a basic ring, like something like this to come out, like just a simple little stone ring, probably somewhere between 6 and 10 hours.
6 to 10 hours? That's crazy. So like one ring you'll be working on for that much time.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I do a lot of batch creating, so I'm making multiple pieces within the same steps at once. So that takes a little bit more time, but like a wire wrapped piece, that would be like 10 to 15 minutes,
Yeah.
depending on what it is.
It's so
But
wire wrapping is a lot easier than like setting
yeah,
stone. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. And I like to do a lot of like detail work with finishing and polishing. So that takes up a lot of time as well. And then, of course, it can be more or less depending on exactly what that is. Like if it's just a simple ring, like a stacking ring, like that's pretty quick. But then you get into like multi stone ring, that definitely gets more time consuming.
So it
Um,
depends on like the piece and what you're gonna do with it and the kind of stone it is and all of that, right?
yes, yeah, pretty much. I'm sorry that's not a more straightforward answer, but yeah, it's all really dependent. And then as far as pricing, I've always stuck with a particular formula, which includes all of the materials multiplied by a certain amount to get the retail pricing, and then add in the time it took me to make it. So, like, This is a real behind the scenes glimpse, but this is my little notebook where I keep track of like all of my material per piece. And in the end, that all gets added up, put into the formula, and then add on my time. But I have been thinking more about transitioning to a margin-based pricing instead of retail pricing and just seeing how that affects things. I don't think it'll change the cost in the end that much, but especially with looking into more fine jewelry is usually priced on margins. So,
Yeah, that would make sense why you'd be wanting to change how you do things because with fine jewelry, one, the jewelry itself, like the stone itself, costs way more too than where you're getting like
yeah,
crystals, like your suppliers, right? And
right.
because of that, it's just like, oh, damn, like now I gotta really change my prices and my thought points and like all of that too. So I understand that. That makes sense why you're gonna do a little bit of a switch.
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll take some practice and like where to implement it and how to implement it, but I think it'll be more beneficial in the end because I do have a lot of expenses, especially as I'm trying to grow. I have tried to like offload a lot of my responsibilities onto people that do that for a living. Like I have an accountant and a bookkeeper now because I'm just a girl. I don't do numbers.
I like her. I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl. I don't know. Don't know.
And that has been a huge weight off my back.
As long as it helps you from being creative, that's all that really matters, I think.
Right. Yeah. There's so many more jobs than just making something when you run a business. So you can get really caught up in that a lot, and your actual like creating time is reduced so much because you have so many other jobs.
Yeah. So delegate. That's a big lesson here too.
Yes. Yeah. Delegating if you can, when you can, where you can. Yeah.
So what would you do then with the pieces of like material that you have that are kind of like scraps? Like, do you have like a scrap pile? Do you still use that material? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I have a big scrap pile. You can send that scrap into a refiner and get that money back based on the cost of the metals now. So, like, silver is the highest it's ever been. It's like, it's crazy. So, it would make sense for me to do that now. But you actually, like, when you work at the bench, you can actually, like, when you're cleaning up and use like a paper towel, you save that paper towel because that has silver dust on it. And that can be sent to the refiner.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
Why is silver
Along
so?
with like, I know. I mean, it's a precious metal, but like, I have a lot of little bits, like
I
where I
see.
cut out the piece. And these sometimes I do use to make other things because this is a lot of metal that you can repurpose. And you can even get to the point where you can melt down your own metal instead of sending it to the refiner and turn it into your own sheet metal, your own wire, etc. if you choose and have the tools to do it. But yeah, I've pretty much been collecting metal for years now with the thought that I would send it to the refiner at some point, and it's probably the good time to do it because it is so high.
That's crazy that silver is so high. I would think like gold is high, but the fact
Oh,
that
it
silver
is.
is like crazy right now, it's just kind of like, what is happening?
Silver and gold are the highest they've ever been. Um, so a lot of people, like especially within the fine jewelry realm, have been looking more towards like platinum and metals like that that still have that like durability and longevity without breaking the bank, you know?
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense for sure. And
Yeah.
probably like looking for long lasting like metals too that are still affordable for them to use.
Yes. Yeah. Because It's crazy out there.
I don't yeah, I don't I see it here too with, like, a lot of other things, so I understand. It's
Yeah, but the system is affecting everything right now.
yeah. I wasn't sure if you wanted to touch upon it a little bit, like, how tariffs might be affecting your business when it comes to, like, crystals and your distributors, have you seen a really big change in that so far? Or are you feeling like you're doing okay right now? Like, did you see a big difference within your own company?
Since all of these things have gone into effect, I was actually away for the majority of that time.
Oh, okay.
So now that I'm back, I guess I'll have to see, like, when I put in orders for materials that I need,
Mhm.
how that works. A lot of my, like, stone suppliers are out of the country. So I'm not too sure, actually. I expect it to affect me in some way, besides the fact that everything has gone up in price. Not
Right.
even just the metals, like, even when I was buying this microscope through the school that I went to, it was in their catalog at a set price, and once we all, like, turned in our order forms, they said, "We're so sorry." They raised the prices out of nowhere, and it's, like, a significant amount that we can't just, like, ignore, you know? So it happened that fast, but yeah, I personally, I haven't seen it a lot yet one-on-one because I've only been back a couple weeks, but I'm sure it will. I'm not thrilled about that.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand because I've seen some small businesses that I follow, and they're like, "We have to take a step back," because they're having a hard time finding these goods to be able to make the
Right?
products. So that's why I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, like, I wonder what's gonna happen with you." But
I know. It's very scary because I don't I don't wanna stop doing this.
yeah.
That's not in my plan, but I know so many people are being forced into changing their plan. So,
Yeah, because your plan is to get a studio that he could go to, and then he could buy from
yes,
you and have all
exactly.
of that. That's your plan.
Yeah.
You can do this.
And we'll get there. Yeah, no tariffs.
No. So, I have one last question for you, and my
Okay.
question is, what advice would you give your younger self about this business, this jewelry business that you created? And where you see where you're at now, what advice would you give yourself when you're in the struggling time periods? Like, what would you say to help get through that?
I would say stop being so scared and stop worrying so much because things have always worked out and they always happen how you want them to happen, and you don't need to be so freaked out to get to that point. And I still struggle with that to this day. So we're speaking to our current selves too, but I would also just say, like, learn to accept the help from other people and don't be afraid to lean on your friends and family. So I've always been a person that just wants to do it by myself, and I don't need help, but it's nice to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Helping people, having help really helps you do the best that you can do. And also giving
Yeah.
yourself that grace to not be so like afraid of everything is really nice too. And I know it's a lot to like learn and you're still going through it, but that is a good reminder, for yourself now, for
Yes.
your past self, for your future self too. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I got a little choked up.
Oh, of course. I felt like it's important for people that want to follow their dream life and and follow their dream and like have that dream be part of their life. And I feel like you've really done
Mhm.
that with your jewelry business. So I felt like I needed to ask you that to be like, how did you get through those struggling points and to where you are now? So thank you again for being vulnerable in that moment.
Thank you. Yeah. I, I've tried really hard. I work a lot, and I don't let a lot of people say no to me.
Yeah. That's
But
very important too.
yeah. And if I gotta be a little scared through it, that's okay too.
Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, for sharing your
Thank you.
journey. I'm so happy we got sit down and talk. And it's just, I love being there from the beginning and seeing where you're going now. And I can't wait to see where you're going in the future. And so I really do appreciate
Thank
you
you so much.
sharing. Of course.
It was really nice to be able to open up and share a little bit during this point in time, like just coming out of something so fresh. So I appreciate you asking me, and I'm glad it worked out.
Hey, me too. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to rate, send us a comment, and share the podcast. If you're interested in coming on the show as a guest, send me a DM over at Jules Unscripted Pod on Instagram. Tune in next week for more episodes with Jules Unscripted. Bye!